Alrighty, so I'm going to do something that I have never done on my channel in terms of the review, and that is I'm going to kind of go a little bit out of order in terms of reviewing some of these games that happen in match week number 18 of the weekend's action. So rather of me decided to go in order and first review the first 8 games that happened on Friday and Saturday. What I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to review the free games that is going to be happening on Sunday, or the free game that just happened just a moment ago earlier, and then later on when the Portland Timbers play against the Seattle Sounders, which that game should be kicking off a little bit over an hour at the time of this recording. I'll do an individual review about that, and then of course we'll review the first 8 games that happened in match week number 18. But in terms of the first free game of the Sunday's action, well, the first 2 games we saw where there was only one goal that was separated between both of these teams in the first 2 games, and then the last game, yeah, it was a goal-scoring frenzy down in Music City. But we start off with Atlanta United versus LAFC, which is the second of the free game that was on national televised, and in the end, it's Atlanta, the one that got the crucial 3 points. And what I said before, this was kind of a desperation derby where both teams were desperate to try to get all 3 points. And I also didn't know that this was a game where there was going to be history that was made, although it's not a good kind of history that both of these teams would make. And that is, if Atlanta didn't win this game, this would be in the first time in their franchise history where they lost 3 straight home games. Or if LAFC do not win this game, this will be the first time that they have gone winless in 7 consecutive games. Or actually, was it 6 consecutive games? By the way, this is now the longest winless run that LAFC, of course, have after this 1-0 loss against Atlanta. And in many ways, this game kind of just summarized LAFC's season and summarized the struggle that they've been having throughout the season, which is, they do very well in terms of the build-up and creating chances, but they just could not bury it in this game. Now, first of all, in the first half, and the first thing I want to write down is that, yeah, the game did not kick off at 4 p.m. as it advertised. And I kind of mentioned in the preview, it sounds too good to be true, that an MLS game is actually going to be kicking off at the same times that is advertised. And indeed, that turns out it wasn't the case and actually kicked off at 4:08 p.m. Local time. But I'll give ESPN the benefit of the doubt, because at least they decided to kick off the game a little bit later than it's advertised, unlike how what happened earlier this year when Fox basically said that there was one game that was going to kick off like at 6:55, and then the game basically kicked off at 6:38, and I basically missed the first 17 minutes because they falsely advertised the game and kicked off the game a little bit earlier. Now, they also mentioned that Rob Valentino is still taking charge as the interim head coach of this team, and he actually is going to take charge of the interim head coach for one more game because Gonzalo Pineda is actually out with COVID. Now, originally I wrote a question mark because I was kind of surprised that Pineda was out because of COVID, but later on it seems like that, of course, is the case, and that's why he can't not just come to Atlanta and basically take charge of this team immediately. I mean, if he didn't had COVID, maybe that would be the case where he's going to be on the touchline for this game, but as I said, he's not going to be on the touchline, not for the next game, but the game after. But early on, Atlanta, I thought they had most of the possession, but really, neither team has created much in the first 15 minutes. The first real opportunity came in the 16th minute when Barco tried to score one from tight angle, but that one deflected wide. Before Barco tees one up from 24 yards out, that one also missed wide. And then in the 25th minute, the first real chance for LAFC as Vela kind of mishit a spectacular bicycle kick, and even though he kind of mishits it, he still got enough power where Guzan had to deal with it and denies him there. And then there was a dangerous ball whipped in by Atlanta, but unfortunately there was nobody that could get to it, and actually gone straight to Romero. Before Romero did had to deny Barco from the free kick about 23 yards out, and then Romero absolutely robbed Joseph Martinez as he went through on goal. Like 9 out of 10 times, that's a goal for Joseph Martinez, but Romero does a great job in terms of denying him there as he was one-on-one with Joseph Martinez. And then on the other end, Guzan robbed Rodriguez, and all of a sudden, this game was kind of end-to-end, and it also was a game where there was just chances for both of these teams, and it was just kind of crying for a goal to be scored by either of these teams. And we thought that happened in the 41st minute when Mamadou Fall thought that he scored his first ever professional goal in his career, and LAFC went 1-0 up. But then when they go to VAR, they said that goal, of course, was disallowed because of offside. And I gotta say, if LAFC fans are going to be complaining about this call as well, the reason why they lost this game, I don't think they have they don't have not any rights to complain, because I think that this probably shouldn't have been called offside. And when I just look at a replay, it's just too close to really determine that it is clear and obvious to kind of overturn that call. But this is MLS in some ways, and I've said it before, where clear and obvious, as much as I really hope one day in this league where clear and obvious has a definitive kind of definition, where that is basically the kind of the byline of what should be overturning a call. But at the end of the day, it just kind of feels like it depends on which crew is working on VAR, and it seems like the clear and obvious in terms of this VAR crew feels like even if there's a tiny inch of offside, it is going to be called offside. So obviously LAFC fans are going to be angry about this call, and as I said, I think they definitely have a right to do so, because I think this goal should have counted. And it turns out that unfortunately kind of affect the final score of this game, because of the fact that there was only one goal in this game, and this could have been a 1-1 draw for both of these teams if this goal actually counted. But in the 44th minute, Rossi did put it wide from close range as we head to halftime 0-0 in this game, despite the fact that there was a tons of chances that was happening in the first half. Now in the second half, we didn't have to waste long for the first goal of the game, as the 60 seconds in, Joseph Martinez scored from Barco and Moreno, and this was just a bad mistake by the LAFC backline, giving the ball away in their midfield, allowing Atlanta to go on the other way, and it was unsurprisingly Atlanta was able to take advantage of that. And also Ezequiel Barco, for once, he actually was a little bit unselfish there, pulls it back to Joseph Martinez, and when you leave Martinez wide open like that from 12 yards out, it's going to be in the back of the net. So that was the case as Atlanta was up 1-0. But then on the other end, Cifuentes struck the post on an absolute rocket from 22 yards out, and LAFC, they kind of started to press to try to get the equalizer after going down 1-0. And Atlanta kind of inexplicably decided to just sit back and kind of bunker and hold on to this 1-0 lead, which, yes, I understand they're leading 1-0 and they want to protect the lead, but they were kind of almost in a way where they kind of act like this is the 80th minute, and they just can just pretty much sit back and just try to hold on to the 1-0 lead, when indeed they kind of started doing this in the 50th minute. And I was kind of concerned for Atlanta, knowing the fact that they don't really have a good record this season in terms of just defending for the entire game, and hope to hold on for 3 points. Now, in the 63rd minute, Arango did fire it wide from 20 yards out. Before Joseph Martinez thought he scored his second goal of the game and give Atlanta a 2-0 lead, but that goal, of course, was disallowed for offside, and this time it was definitely the right call, because it was clear that Martinez was at least 2 or 3 yards offside. They mentioned that LAFC actually had a 4-10-2 record when the game is played on turf, so it's pretty much clear that LAFC do not like to play a game when it's actually on turf. Now, in the 71st minute, Arango did put it just wide from the set piece, and I thought Atlanta, the bad set piece defending that they had throughout this game, it could potentially come back to haunt them, because the goal that earlier I talked about was disallowed from LAFC. That was also coming from a set piece, and they just kind of let Mamadou fall completely unmarked in the back post, and you just cannot do that if you want to defend a set piece. So I thought with the bad set piece defending that Atlanta was doing, if LAFC can get more set piece opportunity, they have a chance to potentially get the equalizer. Now, that being said, LAFC did have some bad news, as Palacio kind of had to subbed off of what apparently is a knee injury, and it's definitely more bad news for this LAFC backline, because they are very short-handed this season after they lost Eddie Segura for the season because of a torn ACL, and also Kim Moon-Kwan also out a couple of weeks because of a hamstring injury, and now Palacio could be out for a couple of weeks or maybe even a couple of months, because the look on his face, he kind of knew that he probably is going to spend time on the IR for a bit. Now, in the 81st minute, Rossi puts it wide from close range, and, at that point, I just feel like, this is I've seen this before with LAFC, where it doesn't matter how much they try to go forward and trying to create those chances. They just cannot put the ball into the back of the net, and hence this is kind of the reason why they've been struggling this season. Because a couple of years ago, when I see most of these chances that LAFC had, most of them goes into the back net. But this season, it seemed like most of them don't go into the back net, and it's unsurprising when you don't put the ball into the back net, despite the fact that you create some good chances, you're not going to win a lot of soccer game. And in this case, that was the same again for LAFC, as they lost 1-0 in this game. And the shots in this one, despite the fact that they had more shots over Atlanta with 16 shots compared to 9, they only had 3 of them that was on goal compared to 6 that Atlanta has. 1 shot's off target compared to 10 that LAFC had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Atlanta has. And possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% for LAFC. And yeah, you know, the concern continues if you're an LAFC fan, because we are now getting to this part of the season where it's not really like we're in the early part of the season and LAFC is below the red line, and maybe there's still time to kind of recover. You know, as we get deeper into the season, if this team continue to be looking like this and continue to stay below the red line, there is definitely going to be a lot of concern, and the unthinkable could potentially happen where LAFC can actually miss the playoffs for the first time in their franchise history. But as for Atlanta, this is definitely an encouraging win, and although they're still not back at the Atlanta that we know from a couple of years ago, which I think I feel like I need to kind of stop saying that, because I know this Atlanta team is not going to be looking like the Atlanta from the first 2 seasons. But if they can do what they did in this game and continue to grind out victory, I mean, it doesn't have to be pretty, but as long as you get all 3 points, you can definitely get yourself back into the playoff race. And right now, with Atlanta finally ending a long winless run last week and now getting another 3 points, things are definitely looking bright for this Atlanta team, where a couple of weeks ago it was definitely a lot of doom and gloom that was going on with this Atlanta United team. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, another team that is started to look like they might turn a corner. Now, this, in some way, depending on who you speak to, some Fire fan will say that maybe there's hope that they can of course get themselves back to playoff race, and some Fire fans will say that, yeah, this is just kind of a mirage and they're not tricking me again, in terms of thinking that they're on a good run and eventually they kind of falter. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the reality with the Chicago Fire, and what this is what happened when they are a team that is kind of as inconsistent, and a team that try to give kind of hope. And in some way, if you're a Fire fan, I can relate to that, because as a Quakes fan, it's almost the same feeling, where you expect that, you know, the Quakes, they go on a good run, and, you know, they give you hope that the fact that maybe they can get themselves in the playoff race, and at the end of the day, they still kind of let you down. And this is also why, you know, even though the Quakes still currently has the longest unbeaten run, which I'll talk about a little bit later tonight, how they were able to extend their unbeaten run, but still weren't able to make a lot of ground in terms of the playoff race. And again, even if they gave me a lot of hope, I just feel like eventually they're going to let me down, and I don't want to have to deal with that feeling again, where, again, they let me down again because of giving me this false hope. But that being said, if you want to kind of look in a positive note, the Fire is starting to get themselves back into the playoff conversation after getting a 1-0 win against the Columbus Crew. Although, in the early part of this game, when I first saw this game, I knew that, yeah, it seems like the Fire decided to do a little bit of a throwback kind of game, where they decided to put the football lines overlapping the soccer pitch. And, you know, this was always a big issue with the Chicago Fire playing at Soldier Field, where, you know, since the Bears also plays there, you're going to have a situation where the football lines are kind of going to be overlapping the soccer dimension. And we kind of had that issue last year too, which, you know, in some way, I really hope the Chicago Fire can figure out the situation, because I know as much as they want to stay at Soldier Field and wants to be back at where they all begin, eventually they need to have a soccer-specific stadium. Or the fact that if there is a rumor, if the rumors are true, that the Bears could potentially move out of Soldier Field and that the Fire can have Soldier Field from their own, then maybe they need to convert that into a soccer-specific stadium. And maybe, you know, just I feel like if the Fire are going to have that stadium, they're probably going to have to make it smaller, because there's no way in the world they're going to make that a soccer-specific stadium. It's like a 60,000 seat stadium when the Fire are regularly polling very low attendance. And again, this was another game where that stadium looked like it it was one fit full, and it feels like an absolute cavernous with the way that there was so many empty seats, and also the fact that it kind of almost give me like a little early 2000s and MLS 1.0 kind of vibe, where it's a game taking place in an NFL stadium with just pretty much almost nobody in the stands, and also you have to deal with football lines overlapping the soccer dimension. Now, in the 4th minute, Nagby did drive one that just goes wide, and this was actually could have been a goal of the week contention if Nagby would have put this one in, but it goes wide there. But really, there was not much chances early in this game. There was an ill-advised back pass from Calvo that, fortunately for him, it only led to a corner for Columbus. Etienne then fired at wide from close range before Keita cleared off the line of a dangerous center ball effort from 0-4 in the 41st minute. But, unlike how in this game where the first half there was a lot of chances, this was not the case, and it looks like, are we going to be in for another game where it's going to be similar to the one that I saw on Friday between the Quakes versus Vancouver, where it's going to be a dull 0-0 draw. But heading into the second half, in the 47th minute, Zardes did hit the side netting, and I thought Columbus kind of got off to the better start. Herbert strike one that goes straight to Eloy Rome before Calvo heads it straight to Rome on a long throw-in. But the best chance came in the 74th minute when Rome tipped Barrett's shot that looked like Barrett was able to hit that one in, but Eloy Rome does a great job to tip that one over the bar. And even though Eloy Rome didn't have to make a lot of incredible save in this game, that was one of the better ones that he made. And again, that was probably the best chance of the game up to that point. But then 2 minutes later, before when Stojanovic puts it high and then it looked like Chicago was going to get the go-ahead goal, right as soon as I finished writing that, Chicago did get the go-ahead goal. It's Stojanovic that gives the Fire a 1-0 lead, so you're welcome, Chicago Fire fans, for me to always it seemed like every time when I write some note, it seems like either things usually comes out well, or sometimes it goes wrongly, and that time it actually goes well, and that as soon as I write there's a go-ahead goal, there was a go-ahead goal that of course happened. Now in the 82nd minute, Barrett did hits the side netting as he looked to try to put the game away. Before, in the last couple of minutes, you can see Columbus was really pushing for the equalizer, and the Fire was just holding on to this 1-0 lead. And Shuttleworth actually had to deny Matan in the first minute of stoppage time, but then it kind of led into a bit of a scramble where Molino basically fired a shot that was outside the box, but this one actually hits off of BWP, and somehow it actually redirected toward goal and actually struck the post. Now, originally, I thought if that one went in, there could have been a hint for offside, because anytime when a long-range effort shot like that and hit off of your own player, usually the flag is going to come up, but the flag never went up, and it just feels like maybe indeed BWP was in an onside position. If that went in, it would have been 1-1 in this game. But in the second minute of stoppage time, there was a huge shout for a handball from the Columbus player, but nothing was given there. And despite the fact that Columbus kind of throw the kitchen sink to try to search for a late equalizer, Chicago was able to hang on, and in the end to get a 1-0 win against the Crew. As the shots in this game, 17 shots compared to 12 that Columbus had, 6 shots on goal compared to 1 that Columbus had. Both teams had 7 shots off target, both teams had 4 shots on his block, and possession-wise, 47% possession compared to 53% possession that Columbus has in this game. And with this win, they're able to get themselves up to 10th in the Eastern Conference and 6 points back of Montreal, who currently owns the last spot in the East. So they're getting a little bit closer in terms of trying to get themselves back to playoff conversation. But as for Columbus, they are going the wrong direction in terms of the playoff conversation. And defensively, they were much better compared to the 3-game losing streak that they were on. They were once again struggling on the attack in this game, and there's got to be a lot of concern if you're a Crew fan, knowing the fact that this is supposed to be a team that everybody said that this is a Supporters Shield winning team and supposed to be the best team in the league, and it seems like they're starting to becoming one of those teams that have a lot of players that is clearly underachieving, and it's unsurprising the fact that because of that, they're also kind of having a bit of an underachieving season, now find themselves below the red line again. But now moving on into the last match on this board is going to be Nashville and DC United, and this is the game I talk about how, well, there was a ton of goals that was scored, and in the first half, it was basically all offense and no defense whatsoever. And the goal scoring fest all started in the second minute, or actually it all started in the third minute, because in the second minute, Willis was able to make a good save to deny Paredes from the long range. But then on the very next sequence on the corner, it's Brian scoring from Gresso to give DC United an early 1-0 lead. But then on the other end, just 4 minutes later, Brian actually had a rare double clearance off the line, as he was first able to clear a shot from Alistair Johnston off the line. And then on the follow-up, Mukhtar trying to drive one in, but Brian was in that same place again, clearing that one off the line. I mean, it's been a while since I've ever seen a defender, especially a similar player that is able to clears a shot off the line twice in the same play. But Frederick Brian definitely did it in that one. But then on the other end, Onabama just drives it wide there for Nashville, and this game was definitely coming off the rails early in this one, and it continues to come off the rails, as in the 14th minute, Nashville gets the equalizer. It's CJ Sapon, who is just red hot right now, probably one of the most informed strikers in the league, as he scored from Leao to make it get 1-1 in this game. Although in many ways I feel like Keppen should have done better in terms of this one, because while it was well hit from Sapon from the header, I feel like Keppen should have been a little bit stronger in terms of pushing this one away. And also, I know throughout this game it was raining, and certainly both goalkeeper had to deal with the slick service, but still, I feel like MLS goalkeeper, even dealing with a slick service, they should be able to make some decent save, and this is just one of those that I feel like Keppen clearly should have done better. And this won't be the last time where I would say Keppen clearly should have done better in terms of shot. And it turns out this was not a great night for the DC United backup goalkeeper, because just 17 minutes later he was beaten again, and it's beaten by the same guy, as CJ Sapon scored from Mukhtar and Lovitz to give Nashville the lead. Now that time I didn't think Keppen had any. And he really didn't have any to deal with, because this one was kind of headed into the top right corner. But nevertheless, Nashville completely turned this game around, which is not a big surprise, because that's what Nashville does. I mean, this season, if there's one thing about this team, is that even if this team goes down early, that they're going to find ways to come back, and they did. And this time they actually did it relatively quicker than I used to seeing them doing it inside the first 30 minutes of the game. But then in the 36th minute, Mukhtar tried to make it 3-1 as he drags it wide from close range, before he did make it 3-1 just 1 minute later, as he scored from Romney to give Nashville a 3-1 lead. But then 5 minutes later, the game was back on, because DC would score. It's Ola Kamara scoring from Ariella and Julian Gresso, and it's 3-2 now, heading into the last 3 minutes of the game. And it could have been 4-2 if Mukhtar would have puts a 24-yard free kick on target, but unfortunately he fires that one high. And after what, as I mentioned, of just a first half where basically defending was kind of optional throughout this first half, we end the first half with Nashville leading 3-2 over DC. Now in the second half, pretty much that same frantic nature we got in the first half continue into the second half, as Lovitz fired one wide on the volley, and that I thought the game was still wide open. Gresso then missed wide from close range to try to tie the game up for DC, before Romney on the other hand hits it high from a corner. And despite the fact that we do finally go for a period where there wasn't really a lot of chances, although it was also kind of a moment where it seems like that next goal is eventually going to arrive. It did in the 74th minute, or actually not the 74th minute, but the 79th minute, as Alex Mule would score from Lovitz and Onuga. Mule literally came on the pitch just a couple of minutes later, so that has to put a smile on Gary Smith's face, knowing the fact that he made a substitution, and that substitution immediately paid off with the fourth goal to kill the game off. But I mentioned before how John Keppen kind of had a bit of a nightmare game in this one. Yeah, this is one that it was not a good goal whatsoever, and it's one that I feel like Keppen clearly needs to save that. And this one is even more the one that I feel like he needs to save it, because this was just so weakly hit from Alex Mule, and Keppen's got to have a stronger hand to push that one away, but he wasn't able to do so, and it ends up into the back of the net and pretty much just kind of kills the game for Nashville SC. And to kind of make it even more sure, in the 85th minute, Nashville was awarded a penalty after Brion, who, early in this game, he was definitely brilliant, no pun intended, by the way, in this one, making some good goal line clearance and also scoring a goal. Yeah, he basically did not continue that brilliant kind of form in this game, as he conceded a penalty with a sloppy challenge on Alex Mule to bring him down in the box, and Mule, who of course won the penalty, was rewarded the one to be able to score on the penalty, and he did, as he scored in the 86th minute to make it 5-2 in favor of Nashville, and that's the final score of this game, as Nashville had 17 shots compared to 8 that DC had, 8 shots on goal compared to 4 that DC had, 8 shots off target compared to 2 that DC had, 1 shot that was blocked compared to 2 that DC had, and both teams had 50% possession. And this good bounce back win for Nashville SC, consider what happened last week against Inter Miami, but now they have a huge showdown heading in the middle of the week, which I think that might be the game in terms of the midweek action, when Nashville will be playing at home against Orlando City, and that could also be a game where there could be some crooked number that puts on the score line because of how both of these teams love to attack. But speaking of which, for DC, again, they're also a team that with how Hearn Losada implementing this high pressure system has kind of provide a lot of these entertaining games. But unfortunately, when you decide to play in that system, and I think, I talked about before, whenever I see coaches implement a high pressure system, and most famously Almeida of course decided to do so, when it goes right, it definitely is fun to watch, but when it goes wrong, yeah, it can go terribly wrong. And this was just one of those sequences where, as much as DC was putting a lot of high pressure on Nashville did a good job to try to deal with it. And when you aren't able, when you high pressure and you're unable to win the ball high up the pitch, then you expect to leave a ton of space for the opposition to exploit, and Nashville did exactly that, just completely cut open this DC team, able to bypass the initial line of pressure and just find just almost acres of space to work around, and unsurprisingly score a bunch of goals in this game to show for it. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at the first free game in terms of the Sunday action. Again, in about an hour from now, the game between Seattle versus the Portland Timbers will kick off, and I'll do an individual review of that game. After that, I will be doing the review looking at the first 8 games that happened in match week 18. And again, it's a little bit out of order, but I kind of want to do something that is a little bit different in this channel. Don't want to just kind of keep it the same and just kind of feels like it's Groundhog Day every time when I do a review, where it's always me going the same order and basically do so. So yeah, either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.